Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is Gianni Kovacevic. He is the founder of Lithium Bank, founder of Copper Bank, which also became Faraday Copper. How are you, Gianni?
Doing very well. Just did a big road trip here in Europe, and always nice to stay current. And it was 1,700 kilometers up through the mountains, the
Wow.
Alps, Austria. Ended up in Monaco and back through Italy. And now I've just arrived back to Zagreb, Croatia.
Wow. Sounds like a beautiful and long trip.
Yes, it
Well,
was.
we brought you on today to talk about a lot of the stuff that's happening in the market. Of course, even on the electrical side, with everything that's going on with supply and even the mining side. So give us a little bit of background, your history, and of course, how you started Lithium Bank and Copper Bank as well.
Well, I've been following these junior markets for 25 years. And anyone that follows these things would understand or would know that they're speculations. And the money is made in three different arenas. One, between the cycles of a bull market and a bear market, and you know the DNA of a stock, sometimes they're closer to the bottom than they are the top. This is when you want to buy junior mining shares. Another reason that junior mining shares perform well is because of discovery. If you're drilling for gold and the team hits a fantastic hole in a good location and they keep following up with more and more big hits, generally that gold junior, the stock goes from the bottom left to the upper right of your screen.
Right.
It's those things they don't come around every single day. And then another way that money is made with junior mining is simply momentum trade, where the gold price keeps going up and up and up, and that ricochets into the junior mining shares, and they typically just the rising tide will lift all the boats. And what's happened right now is people that have followed junior mining for a very long time would appreciate this. It's the whole way that capital is formed and the way stocks are traded and who's trading them and how many companies have been created and who runs these companies. It's not a lot of excitement out there. So we've run into the sort of a trifecta where the gold price or the metal prices are boring. They're going sideways. So people are just doing other things. There's not a lot of discoveries. If they happen, they're far and few between. And then we don't even have this sort of development reward.
Right.
So what's happening? People are getting tired of owning junior mining shares. And the worse it becomes, the longer it lasts. When there's extreme pessimism, that's when you want to be interested in owning junior mining shares.
Absolutely.
And we're at one of those times right now. And it's tied in with the global economy. We have a lot of nervousness and people are waiting for, what they're calling a hard landing or some, serious thunderclaps to the global economy. And they're not happening, but they should be happening. And interest rates have went up and up and up.
Yeah.
And another thing that people are waiting to happen is the resetting of mortgages, where people that were used to for 10 years paying ultra low mortgage rates. Those days are gone. And the maximum punishment is yet to come to our doorstep, because what we're, the resets of these mortgages, it's not happening today. It's occurring slowly, but the real, maximum pain is going to be felt sort of 18, 24 months from now, 36 months from now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and how that dovetails into this junior mining arena.
Absolutely. And you just brought up mortgages coming up for renewal. And it's not just happening in like US or in the Europe, even in Canada. There's like the main thing is variable rates. They every 4 years, even the fixed mortgage rates for housing, it only goes up to 4 years. So I think in 2024, 2025, there's a massive amount, almost like 60-70% of Canadian mortgages are going to come up for renewal. And you're right, Gianni, if the interest rates are higher, how can people afford that? And do you believe that as we move into 2024, if the Fed, like Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, if they're completely trapped, what does happen to the mining space? Like what happens if the US dollar gets hit? Can the mining space take off 10x, or what do you see happening?
That's an interesting question, because if you are honest with yourself and if you follow junior mining shares, there's actually very little euphoria in any 10-year period.
Mm.
That's what I've noticed. I opened my first trading account in 1995. So that's when I bought my first junior mining share. And you win money, you make money, you lose money, you make money, you lose money. And I did an analysis, which was very unscientific, but just looking at my own personal experience and recalling all the shows that I've been to and all the conferences. I've spoken at all of them.
Yeah.
And frequently I was, in fact, the keynote speaker. And so I look at mostly in a 10-year period, there is about a year and a half of euphoria. The rest of the time, you're climbing a wall of worry. It's misery. It's despondency.
Yeah.
People are losing money. Markets are going nowhere. And you get eventually you do get a capitulation. And we're kind of witnessing that right now. If you look at the TSXV, the venture, and look at a 10 or 20-year graph, right now we're trading at sort of especially on an inflation adjusted way, we're trading at near all-time lows. Forget about the COVID dip, the COVID blip that happened when shares went down even further. But it's the volumes. Volumes disappeared April of last year. And so I will submit to people, until you see an extreme increase in volume, and it's probably going to be negative.
Right.
Market's going to be red, but big volume. That's the capitulation phase. And that's when the reformation of capital, where finally people are puking out their last shares, and that those shares are being absorbed by people that understand these cycles. And it doesn't mean we're going to have euphoria tomorrow, but it just tells you that I can truly say that what I said before, we're closer to the bottom than we are the top. You're never going to pick the absolute bottom. So you have to start averaging yourself in. And then that's a momentum trade. And then eventually we're going to have the metal prices, because they always do. Metal prices go up, metal prices go down. And we're in a phase right now where it's, I think, difficult for people to open a new, whatever metals mine. Well, let's talk about copper. It's my favorite commodity, and I think it's the bellwether of the global economy.
It is.
Right now, on an inflation-adjusted basis, it's certainly, this is a tough copper price. And you're not going to see a lot of new copper projects being commissioned. And you put that together with demand for copper is actually going to be okay. Some may argue that the global economy is going to have a hiccup, but still, that's going to be driven more by these initiatives for the electrification of the global economy, which everyone has heard a million speeches about already, not to talk about. But the CAGR growth rate for the demand of copper, I will submit to people, is going to be 2, 3, 4% for the next 20 years.
Wow.
So eventually, you don't need to know a lot about this. We are going to have to build new copper mines, but you can't do it. A mining engineer cannot turn a resource into a proven and probable reserve using these copper prices. So I know that it's not a question of if it happens, but when the copper price starts to reflect that, and the speculators are then pushing the copper price higher, and the end user has to pay these higher prices, that's going to reverberate into owning junior shares for copper names. And I think you're not going to have to wait 5 years for that. You're not going to have to wait 3 years for that. I would say we're right now in the foundation phases of the next, let's call it a mini bull market in metal shares. But if you really have a takeoff in the copper price, because the operating copper mines have never been so, without disruption like we've seen historically in the past. And because the market is still tight, if we were to have a major disruption at one of the large copper mines in the world, the market would be imbalanced instantly. And that would be the reason why the copper price would start to go much, much higher, and that'll reverberate into the shares. And then get one of these periods of what is, I would even say, euphoria. And that's the time you want to be selling copper shares. Now's the time to be accumulating, following. And then later comes the time where you want to be selling these things.
So basically what you're waiting for in the mining space is kind of like that volume. And once the volume comes in at a massive rate, then it'll gain momentum, no matter what the price is, down or up. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. And it's also worked the last two peaks when the TSX venture had its blow off top. And absolutely the TSX venture collapsed in value. This happened in the 06, 07, happened in 2011. There's 2x the normal volume of the overall exchange, happens for a couple days, and then the market collapses.
Interesting.
Okay, and you can look at a 20-year graph, and you can look at that, how that's correlated. And right now, in April of last year, we saw that the volumes, so the peak volume on a unit was 250. The average is about 120. It hit a blow off top at 250, fell down to 180, and then April of last year went to 40.
Oh, wow.
We're now trading certain days, we trade 15
Wow.
and 20. And the blow off top was 250. Well, 2 days ago, it went to 65.
So it's going back up.
So in red, has to be red, because this is capitulation and the shares are being puked out.
Right.
It's not big volume and it's green. It's big volume and it's red.
Right.
Has to be bad. Maximum misery has to be inflicted. And if we continue to see that, that is the signal that we've already went to the next cycle. And then we'll again follow green volume. You want to see bigger volumes where money is being put into the junior shares and not sucked out, which is what we've seen for these last months and the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Do you have any copper price predictions for 2024 or no?
Well, you got to put your mining engineer hat on. I can't tell you what the speculators are going to put the price to, but what I will tell you, as long as we have a futures market for commodities, and we are always going to have a futures market for commodities, there's going to be really higher than it's worth highs and lower than it's worth lows. That's because nobody in the world wants to pay high prices for copper. Yeah. That should be clear. There are tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that fabricate and use copper every single day. They do not celebrate a high copper price. They like a normal, stable copper price. But who pushes the copper price to these blow-off highs? Speculators. And it's amazing when you have a market that's balanced and it goes a little bit out of balance. It's amazing what a little bit of speculation can do and how it can drive that price. And it always rolls over, because the speculators, you look at the signals and everyone's not, there's no collusion, but they're all in on it. Yeah. They say, you know what? They stop buying copper, the copper price rolls over and they pound it down. It just gets pounded and it just goes to lower than it probably should be worth. So I will submit to you that we're going to have an average copper price where there's confidence that the copper price will stay at a level where a mining engineer can turn a deposit into what's called proven and probable reserves. And their deposits are getting lower and lower grade, higher and higher elevation in funkier and funkier places with more claims on ESG, no matter where the project is. These are usually more companies. Yeah. It costs more. So when you layer all that in, once you've done the feasibility study, I can tell you, I can submit to you, and this is on all things being equal with the US dollar today, because the US dollar keeps losing spending power. Right. But on a today's dollar price, I will submit to you that based on grade and based on those other criteria, you're going to see a copper price between $12,000 and $15,000 a ton, which means you're probably going to see a copper price around $6 or $7 a pound. Wow. And that'll be around the same, inflation adjusted, it'll be the same price copper was back in 2011 when it was $4.50. Now, what we can't control is if the speculators are having a good time and the narrative is good and you've had some disruption at some major copper mines, then the copper price goes higher. Makes sense. It'll go on trade. And that's when you truly have a capital M mania, and shares almost always overperform. If the commodities trading for more than it's worth, the junior shares almost surely follow suit. And if you follow these things and you know them, you understand them, you should be invested in a good copper name. And for me, I mean, of course, I'm still invested in Faraday Copper, trades on the TSX, great team. They're going to drill 20,000 meters this year. That's how I continue to speculate in copper. It offers you leverage and optionality with no expiry date. They own the projects. So I think that's, you know, if you want to sit there and play the mugs game of speculating commodities, not for me. I want to sleep well at night. I've got patience. I know this company's not going bankrupt. Optionality with no time expiring. And that's how I'm playing the copper game.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because here on Wall Street Silver, we watch a lot of the silver and gold, but we also watch copper too because I mean it's
Mhm.
still part of the same same type of family. So and it's exciting to see it's exciting to have you on, Gianni, to come even to talk to everyone about the copper industry and what's happening on the mining space. And hopefully as the market develops within the next 2-3 months, we'd love to have you back because that was awesome to talk about copper because usually we just talk about silver and gold.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's
And the
great.
market, the junior market, the
Yeah,
psychology of the market is
yeah, the
so fascinating.
psychology. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a huge pleasure, Gianni, having you on. So thank you so much from me and everyone at Wall Street Silver.
Okay, nice to be on.